Welcome to TRIIBE Talk. We have actionable strategies from current and next-gen leaders to demonstrate really that age doesn't impact the quality of one's work. And to get started, we're just going to give a quick intro and overview as to what TRIIBE Talk is all about.
Introducing TRIIBE Talk, where we alternate between current and next-gen leaders to show that age doesn't impact the quality of one's work. On our podcast, we share real stories from changemakers at every stage, so you can hear what the journey actually looks like as it's happening. In our workshops, we go hands-on, giving you practical, actionable tools to build skills, grow ideas, and turn purpose into impact.
Whether you're an entrepreneur, philanthropreneur, or intrapreneur.
Welcome, everybody, to TRIIBE Talk. As we get started, we have three fantastic guests, Chirag, Keith, and myself. We're going to get started first with just expressing who's going to be talking and what their works are about. So beginning with Keith, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Keith is the CEO of SuperBetter, and Chirag here is a brand historian working with brands such as Google, Shopify, and the History Channel.
Amazing. Good to be here, y'all.
Keith, we'll have you in a second when we get to the next session. But for Chirag, are you ready to go?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. I'll let you take over from here.
Amazing. Just we could put up the shared screen for me, please. Amazing. Hi, everyone. My name is Chirag, and in just a few moments, I'm going to start to explain who I am. But before I do that, a few housekeeping items. As we mentioned a little bit earlier when we kicked off, please do try to join the chat if you can. In order to leave comments, you may need to connect to a YouTube channel. But if you could, please do that. It is the easiest way for us to know whether you're still awake or with us. Plus, it also gives Keith and I the ability to then be able to shift our strategies depending on what kind of topics you all want to cover. But to start off today's talk, I think we talked a little bit about from signal to noise, or from noise to signal, or what I'd like to say is that good brands don't whisper. But before I introduce myself, I'd like to talk a little bit about UNICEF. Now, UNICEF, for those of you that are familiar, they're an organization that works with children, often to provide things like healthy, clean water access, education, or in this case, as you can see, vaccines on some of this on the screen at the moment. So what ended up happening many, many years ago, the story goes, is that in the UK, a majority of adults had no idea that UNICEF worked with children. Now, of course, those of us that know that that's predominantly what they do. That's a massive sort of brand identity crisis. How do we try to resolve this? Well, we can come up with very unique, big, expensive campaigns. Or if the thing we are trying to drill into our audience is that we work with children, why not simply remind them that over and over and over again? And that's exactly what they did. They started to come out with campaigns like this, as you see on the screen at the moment, things like for every child answers, for every child vaccination, for every child, every right. The idea became that if we could repeat for every child, for every child, for every child, over and over and over again, well, perhaps it'll stick into people's minds. And that's exactly what happened. They came back a few years later, and suddenly studies showed that a majority of UK adults did now know that UNICEF worked with children. So that's simple repetition of a word or a term that we wish to be known for. But what about a vibe or a feeling? Many of you will probably be surprised, and normally I'd love to make this a bit more interactive, but given that the comments are a little quieter, I'm going to sort of roll through this, and then in the end, leave time for you all to ask questions here. But many of you are probably familiar with Taco Bell. I'm willing to bet that a majority of you had no idea that Taco Bell has their own hot sauce themed luggage. You can see it right here on the slide. They partnered up with a company called Cowpack in order to come out with travel inspired suitcases that look just like their hot sauce packets. Every time I'm at an airport, I look for this, and I haven't been able to find anyone yet. But one of the other cool things that they did is that Taco Bell also came out with their own resort. An entire resort where you could go and fall asleep on the pool on a floaty that looks like one of the hot sauce packets, eating a chalupa while sipping on Tito's vodka. That was the Taco Bell resort. Now, unfortunately, they did shut down during the pandemic and haven't reopened since then. But one of the cool things they've done since then is open up the cantinas, which is their early retirement homes. Now, the idea is that you're not supposed to retire here when you're 65 and up, but rather when you're still relatively young, because they want you to go and experience what retirement may feel like, things like shuffleboard or golf, and then have that as a moment of reflection to go, is this what I'm waiting for? Or am I living my life at the moment for the highest value? Or am I trying to make the most of my life? That takes us to the words live más. See, that's the big Taco Bell motto, and it is the word that or the feeling that they continuously want to drill into you. Live más, live life to its absolute fullest. And so I could try to run campaigns to convince you that my chalupa is the best chalupa in the world, or I could stop competing with all of my other fellow fast food chains and instead focus on competing on a feeling, this identity marker that Taco Bell is for those who are traveling the world, partying, and as you're stumbling on your way back home late at night, the first thought that should come to your mind is, let's get a chalupa. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Chirag, and perhaps the most important thing to know about me is that I grew up in a small business family. Literally, my crib was at the store, my first toy, my dad's credit card machine. And if you see right here, you can actually see me getting my first sales quota of 5 dresses. I sold 7 that day. All right. I can see that there are a few questions that are being tossed in, Jane, as well as how important are colors and font when it comes to branding. We'll talk a little bit about this as we get into later on into this specific talk right here. But sort of spoiler alert, I think they're one of the last things your brand should be worried about. And we'll talk about what I mean in just a few moments. But that was where I came from. Now I am the most dynamic, engaging brand marketing speaker you'll ever meet. That statement feels a bit odd. Who calls themselves the most dynamic, engaging brand marketing speaker? But we're going to come back to that sentence in just a few moments, and it'll make a lot more sense. Now, I have to be very clear. In no way is Google associated with this talk or in any way sort of affiliated here. However, it would be weird for me to not mention that as part of my identity. Right now, 9 to 5, I'm over at Google, where in addition to being a customer sort of centricity and support or experience specialist, I'm also a resident brand evangelist, which allows me to be able to advise large global corporations on how to land narrative. And in my 5 to 9, I am the world's brand historian. I've studied where brands have been for the last 500 years in order to help us determine where we're headed for the next 100. And the spoiler here is that it doesn't matter what the technology or the medium may look like, whether it was the printing press or if it was stamping your logo onto a barrel or if it's paid ads or AI tomorrow. Narrative, narrative, narrative. And we'll talk through what that means in just a bit. You might have seen me across social media. We have an audience of over 75,000 followers with over 35 million views across platforms. I've spoken on some amazing stages like Google for Startups, HubSpot, Shopify, Adobe's Meet Magento. And what brings my sort of personal, really excitement, joy as a little kid growing up is that I've also been on the History Channel. They have a docuseries called The Mega Brands That Built America. And if you check out seasons 2 and 3, you'll see me peppered throughout as one of the brand experts giving commentary. Now, if you have any questions around my background and stuff, I'm more than happy to chat through that as well. But again, given that, we've got this weird sort of setup with the chat, if you have any questions, toss them in. If you think something was cool as I talk about it, by all means, please leave it in the comments so that at least I know you're listening there. But for now, I'm going to try to sort of whiz through this to leave you as much time at the end to ask questions. Now, before I continue there, Kyle, I'm going to ask if someone from the TRIIBE team, can you just check in one time to just let me know how's audio, visual, too fast, too slow?
Fantastic.
Beautiful. Amazing. And with that, we then go into this. Ladies and gentlemen, when I give a talk like this, oftentimes when I come in, now while many of you are probably either founders or potential founders, right? Jaden and Zachary, thank you so much. Asiyak, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. We'll talk through all of these questions. Again, really appreciate, please continue to toss them in. But as I give this talk, one of the big sort of struggles that I keep coming up against is people saying, Chirag, I'm not a business, and ergo, I'm not a brand. What I'm going to ask you all to do is for just a few moments, trust me, and suspend any existing belief that you have of what a brand is. And instead, listen to what I'm about to say. You are being spoken about. Your parents are trying to explain to their friends what you do for work. Your coworkers are talking about you to each other. Your manager is talking to other managers, deciding whether you should be promoted. Your friends are talking to you about talking about you to some random person they're trying to set you up with. All around you in your life, people are using words in order to describe you. your entire life, everything you have ever done, is going to be reduced down into simply a few sentences. Here's this person, here's what they do, here's what I think of them, and then maybe some way to contact them. 4 sentences to describe everything that you are. Ladies and gentlemen, if those words are going to be chosen, they're going to be my chosen words. And that is your brand. Your brand, simply put, are the simple words and terms that people are using when they are describing you to others and you are not in the room. That happens not when you are there and present and actively able to shape your brand. So most of the times people say, okay, cool, Chirag, I'll build my brand. That means that I have to be present everywhere and constantly saying what my brand is. But for that, I want you to think of the iPhone. Many of you, if you have an iPhone or any Apple device, there's a high chance you hold on to the box that it came in as well. Throw the box away. My friends, it is simply cardboard. However, Apple spends millions of dollars every year engineering the most perfect unboxing experience. Whereas most brands would look at that kind of technology and say, hey, it's just a way in order to get the product into the sort of consumer's hands. Apple goes, no, that's my first impression. See, because if you feel premium simply opening a cardboard box, if simply pulling that whoosh sound out suddenly makes you feel like you're about to unlock something that's very expensive and premium, it's worth it for them. Because they know that your perception of the iPhone does not begin when the iPhone is powered on. It begins from the moment they receive that box. And that is what we call the halo effect. When one thing is so great that it makes everything else around you look amazing as well. And that is what I'm going to teach you to be able to do over the next, now I say about 17 minutes that I have left. I'm not going to be able to show you everything, and I'll talk about what that means in just a moment, but we'll at least start to get you, get the ball rolling here for you. In order to do this, the first thing that I'm going to ask you to do is to try to determine some end point, some end goal. I want to get promoted. I want to grow on social media. I want to get funding for our startup. I want to go and finally ask that person out. Where are we going? And then most importantly, things do not exist. Colleges do not exist. Jobs do not exist. Companies do not exist. They are simply empty, hollow buildings that are being filled with humans. Any goal that we wish to achieve, anything that you are trying to do, at the end of the day, is simply a matter of figuring out if you can find the person in charge and convince them. So whatever goal you have is most likely tied to about 3 people on average. I want to get promoted is probably tied to your manager, maybe the director right above them, and probably someone on your team who's going to be your advocate. I want to go meet that one person and really get that introduction to that author or that content creator I've really liked. Your main audience is probably them, their manager, and then an intermediary friend that can introduce you. Wherever we're headed, if we can determine who our audience is, we can determine what our message is going to be. Don't lead with message. Don't lead with what do I want to share with the world. Lead with what the world is looking to listen for. And what I mean by that is let's take a look at Barbie. Barbie is really great at this because when Barbie is trying to advertise on TV or on social media, their audience is children. And when that audience is children, the storyline or the ads, they focus on things like where Barbie is going, who her friends are, what is the big next story that she's going to go into. But then the moment the child is bought on, the moment he says, yes, I want a Barbie, bang, from that point, the audience is shifted. Because now that child will go to their parent, and the person who is actually paying for this, the customer, versus the person who's simply using it, the consumer, the child, well, the customer, they have different questions. Their questions aren't, where's Barbie's next adventure going? Their question is, well, how much is this going to cost me? Are any of these pieces chokeable? And when is the next model coming out? Because if I buy this one, are you just going to replace it with another one in a few weeks? Suddenly now when the parents are going online or they're going in store, the things that are screaming out at them are things like price tags and sort of dates of the next collection arrival. If I spend all my time trying to convince the parent about the story and the child about the price, I'm wasting my time and my energy. So step 1, where are you trying to go? What is that goal you want to achieve? Step 2 is that you can most likely identify who are the next 3 people that I need to convince in order to get to that goal. That is our audience. And the question we want to ask of ourselves at that point is, what do we want them to think and say about us? If we need them to advocate, and if I could magically give them those words, what would those words be? And for that, we lead into the brand clarity framework. Ladies and gentlemen, for the last, almost a decade now, I've had the fortune of working with some of the world's largest corporations, Fortune 500 companies, all the way down to mom and pop shops. I've worked with celebrities down to people simply building their brands in corporate America. And across the board, I found that regardless of the scale at which you operate, the question or the fundamental fear that we often have as humans is, will I be remembered? If there's a promotion coming up, will my manager remember me? If my product is on a shelf full of other products, will our brand be the one that is remembered? And in order to solve for this, we've created a 3-step process. In step 1, and that is what I'm going to go over with you in this session, given that we only have about, I want to say 13 minutes left now here. But again, Kyle and I have chatted quite a lot on seeing how we can bring a lot more of this sort of education over to you, as well as some of the other research I'm working on. But today we're going to talk about what we call your key brand echoes. And I'll explain what those mean in just a few moments. But the thing that they are trying to solve for is this sentence I kept hearing over and over again. I want to be clearly known for something. When people think of me, they should know exactly what they should be saying, and it should be words that I have chosen. Once you have those words, I can then teach you on how to turn those words into stories, because that's how we actually connect with people. And there are 8 types of stories that every brand, whether it's personal or business, needs to learn how to tell. And finally, once I have the words and the stories that I want people to use, well, from there, how and where do I share my stories? That is the brand curiosity theory. But for now, we're going to go into the brand echoes. In order to do this, my strategy for all of you, my challenge for all of you as we close out this evening later on, is I want you to pick 3 words. They have to be incredibly simple words. 3 words or feelings or emotions or terms that you wish to be known for. And that essentially becomes your brand. Your marketing is going to be fun, unique ways of reminding people of those words. What do I mean by this? Well, let's take a look at Heinz. See, Heinz, they have 3 words that they want you to use for them. Red, slow, and 57. Red means that it's high quality ketchup. Slow means that it's not watered down, it's thick. And 57, well, that's just part of their branding and marketing. And so if that's their brand, their marketing is just doing fun things to remind you of these 3 words. For example, having a website that took 57 minutes to load, not 57 seconds, 57 minutes. It was an all red loading screen. And if you waited until the end, you got coupons. They have partnered up with a puzzle company in order to come out with an all red puzzle, 570 pieces. Red, slow, 57. And my personal favorite here is that they partnered up with Waze, the navigation app, in order to say that if you were stuck in traffic, and when you're stuck in traffic, it turns red. Well, red, and if you were traveling at about the same speed at which the ketchup should be leaving the bottle, which, by the way, is an actual number that they have measured and publicly announced. Well, if that was the case, then you were rewarded with some sort of coupon that had 57 in it. Red, slow, and 57. Simple words shared with the audience in fun, unique ways. I'm going to give a few more examples in order to be able to drive this point home and give you a little bit more of an actionable take on this. But in the meantime, please, in the comments, if you can all let me know, how are you feeling so far? Everyone's still with me. We're coming into about the last 10 minutes, which ideally, hopefully, I'll wrap up even sooner than that to leave time for questions at the end. But just let me know in the comments. Give me a bit of a pulse check here. We've already gone over a little bit of the Taco Bell example, but it was the same concept. Whereas red, slow, 57 are actual words, Live Moss is more of a feeling. Thank you so much, Justin. Thank you, Daniel, Zachary, Jaden, Asiak, again, for all the comments. Appreciate that. But let's talk a little bit about Emma Chamberlain. Sometimes your echoes. Now, the reason we call these echoes is that once you've chosen the words, the terms, or the feelings, or the emotions we want people to attach to us, what we want to do next is simply remind them of those words over and over and over and over and over again, until finally, when someone comes up to them and says, hey, what do you think of so-and-so person? They're simply echoing back the words we have already given them. So for example, if I want, when conference leads or someone from an entrepreneurship center comes up to you and says, hey, we're looking for a really cool speaker and we want to bring in Chirag, what do you think? Well, at that point, I'm not relying on you because, well, at the end of the day, you have a million other things to think about. You could have been having a really bad day. You may not even remember who I am. But the words that I'm going to drill into your mind, whether that's saying them out loud or having them pop up on the screen over and over again, is the most dynamic, engaging brand marketing speaker we'll ever meet. Similarly, if you think of Emma Chamberlain, she is sort of a YouTuber. Thank you, Jackie and David, for coming in as well. But Emma Chamberlain was one of the early individuals to really crack vlogging and going viral from it. But one of the interesting things about all her videos is, or majority of them, is that she was usually making coffee in them, either making it, had coffee with her, or was walking around with coffee. And so by seeing that thing, by seeing the coffee over and over again, so it wasn't a spoken word, it wasn't a feeling, it was a physical symbol. Well, her sort of audience began to really attach themselves to that sort of notion that she loves coffee. So when she went on to go and create her own coffee brand, Chamberlain Coffee, it was pretty successful. And it still is to this day. Meanwhile, we see a majority of sort of social media creators that try to then launch businesses fail. For her, it was because it was already part of her authentic brand, her echoes, because people already knew she loved coffee. Went from there. That's so funny, Daniel. I hear the 0.057 miles per hour is the speed at which the ketchup should be leaving the bottle. I love that. David, it is a challenge, but I'm going to give you something to help you in just a few moments. Jackie, I see you say it's a challenge as well, but I promise you it's going to make sense in just a few moments. We're going to make this really simple for you because it's really not that complex. I'd love to sit here and say I'm the next Aladdin, this new magical sort of talent that I have. In reality, I found something very simple. And growing up in a small business family, I was really frustrated at how something so simple was being gatekept from so many people. But if we look at Richard Branson, he's the founder and CEO of the Virgin Atlantic sort of group, and they do everything from space all the way to flying, to food, to yoga pants, and everything in between, right? This is a man who is literally doing a million things. It should be incredibly easy and simple for his overall personal brand to get lost in depending on which context you're talking about him. But what you'll always notice is regardless of where and who he's giving an interview to, the word adventurer pops up over and over and over again. The reason they do that is because Richard Branson's team is incredibly intentional about feeding that word into the vocabulary over and over again. Just in the bio, now he has about a bio of, I want to say about 2 or 3 paragraphs on the Virgin sort of website. In just one of those paragraphs of his 2 or 3, he's used the word adventure 3 different times. And he goes on to use them quite a lot over his entire social media. We often overthink using a word or an exclamation point more than twice in an email. Meanwhile, this guy's just peppering adventure everywhere. And what happens is that when people are overwhelmed and say, how do I describe a man who's doing a million things? They look to find the words he's provided for them, which is, in this case, adventurer. Another funny example here that we can pull in is Corona. Now, Corona, for the longest time, has had a really strong association with the beach. Why don't other beers have that same association? And that's because no one else invests in that sort of image, that Corona goes with your beach, whether that's popping it up physically as a word on the actual ads or La Playa waits, or buying an entire island. See, Corona actually owns an entire island called Corona Island, where you and sort of friends or family of yours can go and actually spend an entire week getting free Corona.
Oh, Charles, are you with us? Perhaps technical difficulties just at the important point. We will fix that over in a moment. Let's see. But in the meantime, if anybody has any questions, please send them in the chat and we'll get started with that. Chirag, I'm sure, will join us back in a moment. Sure. Unfortunately, the deck is only controlled from his end, but we will be able to get back in a moment. In the meantime, questions such as how AI affect personal branding for creators, what's a plan to go from 145 to 145,000 subscribers, how to change color, as well as everything from what's the key of amassing those large follower accounts? So I think that the trend that I'm understanding is, yes, it's wonderful to hear knowledge about branding, about what other companies have done, but certainly they've had both financial support as well as investment at the start. So how is it possible for us in a new era to support as well as recreate the funding needed? And what can we do in order to finance and create new brands that actually stay strong? He is rejoining us in a moment. Thank you for your patience. If you haven't connected yet, you can find Chirag on LinkedIn here. I encourage you to scan and connect. He is a wonderful speaker and very happy to speak at different occasions and events. Of course, his focus is on branding. And if you go to check out his Instagram, his LinkedIn, or other channels, you'll notice immediately that he walks the walk, both always constantly presenting videos about new brands that he discovers, as well as sharing videos of the current work he's doing. He's also been an incredible MC from everything from Times Square to weddings. So if you're interested in someone who can help elevate your brand, be there in person with you, and encourage and support, please reach out to Chirag. In the meantime, as we're waiting for questions, Keith, are you ready to jump in and present on your end? Oh, can you hear me? I don't think we can hear you. Let's try it again. Keith, trying one more time. Can you hear us? Would you mind leaving and rejoining? It seems like your mic isn't working. Otherwise, you are in for a treat. Keith Wakeman has run an incredible organization called SuperBetter. SuperBetter is a mindset or a mental framework to level up your success. He's used it for over 1 million individuals already and looks forward to how he can provide it and support with the work that you guys are doing. To be sure, the focus of these types of talks and presentations is that you can take an actionable lesson or skill directly from it, not only from learning from it afterwards. Keith, are you ready to go?
I am. Yeah, let me grab my show screen here.
Absolutely.
I'm ready when you are. Yes.
I think once your screen is ready, then we can share it.
Okay.
All set?
I'm ready. Yeah, I'm ready when you are.
Great.
Are you ready? Is it? Yep. The screen good?
Yep. It's not the one that you can control, though. Do you mind sharing your screen?
Yeah, I am. All right, let's try this.
Thank you, audience, for your patience. We'll jump back in a moment. Perfect. Whenever you're ready, go for it.
All right. Can you see my screen? Can you see the slides?
We're all set.
Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful. All right. So if you can see my screen, I'm going to start up for as well. So I'll introduce myself again. I'm Keith Wakeman. I'm the CEO and founder at SuperBetter. We're a company near Chicago, and our mission is to unlock the heroic potential of youth and young adults everywhere. And as Kyle reached out, and I was thinking about, how can I be most helpful today? And thinking about the time of year, it's January 7th. It's a time for organizational planning and what milestones that we're going to achieve this year. It's a time for resolutions. So my goal today, in a relatively short amount of time, is to empower you to achieve more epic wins in 2026. These epic wins might be related to your nonprofit organization and achieving milestones. It could be about your personal growth or overcoming a personal setback. It could be related to your studies or your career aspirations as well. And I'm going to accomplish this by teaching you what this SuperBetter mindset is, and then how you can start to use it in your everyday life. A little bit about me. My superpower is that I'm a problem solver. I also have a branding background. I grew up in brand management in the U.S. food business. So I worked for leading companies, including Nabisco, Keebler, Kellogg's, ran lots of brand portfolios, managed and grew lots of P&Ls, led a lot of new product development and innovation teams, as well as new venture strategy for large organizations. Through that time, I led teams to develop and launch over $1 billion of new products. I was with Keebler. It was part of the Keebler team that sold the company to Kellogg. So I was with the combined Keebler-Kellogg organization for about 7 years. And one day I counted up how many new cookies my teams had launched in those 7 years. And it was something like 35 new cookies. And it just struck me, the problem solving part of my brain was like, yeah, let's figure out that 36 new cookie to launch. But the world doesn't need another new packaged cookie, but it needs other kinds of innovation. And so that led me onto a new path. I left big companies. I founded and led a consulting business in the field of new venture development and strategy for about a decade, and then founded SuperBetter. So on to today's topic around SuperBetter. So what I'm going to teach you is what's known as a mindset intervention. So I'm going to give you a way for your brain to look at the world differently. And once you learn it, you'll be able to look at the world through this lens on an ongoing basis. This SuperBetter mindset is an easy to teach mental framework. It uses the psychology of gameplay to overcome obstacles or achieve epic wins in all areas of life. You can see from my screen, there are 7 rules or 7 steps in the framework. You're challenging yourself, which is like taking on the mindset of gameplay in everyday life. You're going for an epic win, which is goal setting. You're completing quests to move forward. You're battling bad guys, which are obstacles that block your progress. Activating power-ups, recruiting allies, and taking on a secret identity. And I'll go through each of these in a more detail in a few moments. Underneath each of these rules are techniques from cognitive behavioral therapy, positive psychology, and behavioral science. So even though it feels like, hey, I'm just playing life kind of like a game, it's really powerful. And it's been shown in 10 different peer-reviewed studies, including 5 published randomized controlled and clinical trials, that using this framework significantly improves mental health, resilience, and success in a bunch of areas of life, including student success. The framework was first brought to life as an app, and over 1 million people have used SuperBetter through the app experiences. Since then, we've added a book. There's the SuperBetter Power of Living Gamefully is a New York Times bestseller. If you're intrigued by this whole approach and the SuperBetter mindset, the book's a great resource. There's a chapter for each of the 7 rules, and it goes deep into the science and the psychology and how it works with lots of great examples. So no expectations, but it's a great resource, again, if this is something that kind of strikes your fancy to dig in deeper. Commercially, we also offer a product for the education system for colleges and schools that teaches the SuperBetter framework in classrooms as a way to proactively address the youth mental health crisis and build student resilience and student success. Our core promise has always been that we build resilience. We like resilience as kind of the unique focus or the unique promise. One, because it's something everybody wants more of. Nobody wakes up and says, I don't want any resilience. And so it's universal. There's no stigma to that word and kind of that concept. Our definition of resilience is the ability to stay strong, motivated, and optimistic, even in the face of change and difficult challenges. And there's a whole body of published literature that shows that students with more resilience do better academically. They graduate at higher rates. Higher resilient employees are more agile, adaptable, productive, better able to withstand burnout. And then there's a very strong relationship between higher resilience and mental health. I feel like when I share a gameful approach to anything, in order to be taken seriously, it helps to talk about the science and the research. So I'm going to share just two slides about some of the research just to show you how effective this mindset approach can be. So this study is a randomized controlled trial. It came out of University of Pennsylvania. Adults with moderate or greater depression used SuperBetter for 4 weeks. The researchers went back and did an assessment at 6 weeks. So within 6 weeks, their symptoms of anxiety were reduced by 61% and depression by 49%. So using this framework can be very effective very quickly. And it's helpful. This slide mostly focuses on symptom reduction, but also within those 6 weeks, several psychological strengths were also significantly improved. Things like self-efficacy, optimism, social support, and life satisfaction. The second study I want to share is kind of more about the long-term effects of using this mindset approach. This study came out of Harvard and some other institutions. It evaluated college students who had anxiety and/or depression. They used SuperBetter for 10 weeks. The researchers went in. They did follow-up assessments at 3 months and 6 months. And at 6 months, there was a 42% remission rate. So 42% of those college students no longer had anxiety and/or depression. Kyle mentioned that there may be folks here globally and from Africa. So I'll share just a little bit about kind of the global, some of the global scope and African scope with this slide. Of the 10 peer-reviewed studies, we have studies that represent 5 of the 7 continents. So every continent except Antarctica and South Africa. We've shown, through published research that SuperBetter is effective. This program, we have two of those are in Africa. This program that on this slide is an after-school program. So we educators at in a rural village in Zambia at a low resource school, which means a school that has very little access to technology and teaches mostly impoverished children. So they taught the SuperBetter framework, the mindset, in an after school program. During the first semester, the students learned the framework. In the second semester, the students were empowered to use the framework to help address local challenges in their village. So they took on malaria prevention and malnutrition. The paper that was published on this program showed that those students significantly improved their grades and attendance. And the testimonial, which I love the testimonials, I love the data, but it's the real stories, it's the real impact. And so, the head of the foundation associated with the school, shared about a student who was an orphan who was struggling, and after learning the SuperBetter framework and the SuperBetter Club, which was their name for the after-school program, he was more self-assured, more resilient, and became a top-performing student in his grade 12 exams. One other testimonial from the States, one of our customers and partners is Indiana University. The first thing we did with them was they added the SuperBetter framework and taught it in a required course for their first-year students, so a student success course. And for that course, SuperBetter was an overlay. So they spent 10 minutes a week on the SuperBetter framework, and they found and they played back when they brought the language to life in this group setting in this classroom and talked about let's do an ally check-in. What's our epic win this week? What was your favorite power-up? Let's please write a reflection about one of the bad guys you battled. Just using and reinforcing that language not only was a classroom experience, but it fostered a culture of resilience and thriving. My language would be kind of a safe and supportive but aspirational culture. So there's a kind of an added benefit if you decide to use the SuperBetter framework with groups or others, that there's also kind of this cultural aspect, this kind of social cohesion that's built as well. So that's what SuperBetter is, and just some of the insights that we've learned along the way. Now I want you to be able to learn how to bring the framework to life. I'm going to walk through each of the 7 rules and kind of get you started. There won't be enough time for me to kind of coach you to fully set up a full challenge for yourself. So what I'd like to do is I'll encourage you to keep notes, if either pen and paper, or if you have notes on your app on your phone, but keep notes that you can go back to, and maybe later this week, if you're motivated to go back and spend 30 minutes and review the notes and fully set up your first epic win and the activities that go along. So jumping into the rules, the first rule is to challenge yourself. Challenge yourself is about bringing the same mindset that you use when you play games into everyday life, where you're focused on goals and growth. 3.2 billion people around the world regularly play video games. That's almost 40% of the world's population. Every time one of those individuals plays a game, regardless of the genre, their mindset, their brain shifts into play mode. They don't have to tell their brain to shift into play mode. It just happens automatically, and different areas and regions of their brains are going to light up, and they're going to naturally be able to display different kinds of psychological strengths as well. And so, when we play games, what are these strengths that we naturally take on? Well, we tackle tough challenges with more creativity, more determination, more optimism, and we're more likely to reach out to others for help. And so challenge yourself is really about telling your brain you're playing a game, and reframe. It's a cognitive reframing exercise, but reframing life as a game allows your brain to access a lot of these strengths, which can help you to be successful. The second rule is to go for an epic win. This is the goal setting component. Don't let the word epic throw you off. It doesn't mean if you're using this to get into shape that you have to run a marathon. Epic means, epic in terms of, is this goal realistic and energizing? Realistic just means, is it something that can be reasonably achieved? And then energizing means, is it going to require some challenge, so it's not too easy? Is it something that excites me? When I achieve this, can I imagine myself celebrating, alone or with my friends and allies as well? So the first step, becomes, setting up your epic win or your goal. That goal can be small, large, or a step towards something bigger. We're big fans of, if you have a really big long-term epic win that might take several months or 6 months or a year, is to break that into smaller epic wins that might be a week or 2 weeks or a month long, so that you can show momentum and have lots of opportunities to celebrate milestones as you pursue something bigger. So as you kind of think about this goal, epic wins, and how you might apply the framework in your everyday life, again, whether it's around achieving a milestone for your nonprofit, whether it's about something personal, over recovering from a setback, achieving a personal goal, think about what that goal might be, and you write it down. You can come back and revisit it later and change it as well. But having a starting place, when you go back, is usually a very good jumping off point to creating the framework. All right, the next rule is to activate power-ups. Power-ups are quick, simple actions that make you feel healthier, happier, or stronger. Usually they evoke positive emotions. And this comes out of the field of positive psychology, where the research shows that when you can shift your ratio of positive emotions to negative emotions in your everyday life to 3-to-1 or 5-to-1 or more, that it significantly improves your emotional control and your well-being. And so with power-ups, that's what we want to do. We want to do quick activities that evoke these positive emotions. You're probably already doing things in your life that are power-ups. Maybe there's a song you listen to, or you check in with a friend over lunch, right? So there's probably things you can already do, and you can collect those as power-ups and get credit for them, if you will. There are probably other things that you could do that would be kind of the low-hanging fruit, right? If you're working and taking a break and looking out a window and appreciating nature, that could be a simple 30-second kind of a power up as well. So as you're setting this up, what I'd like to do is encourage you to start collecting power ups and write down 3 or more power up ideas right now. Again, things you're either doing or can do. While you're doing that, I'll share 2 examples of power ups, and you're welcome to write those down and add these to your list as well. One of the power ups is called baby animals, and this one's really simple. and also really, really fun and powerful. So just think about your favorite animal. It can be anything, dog, cat, dolphin, kangaroo, koala, and then open the browser on your phone, do a search for a baby and whatever your animal is. And then when a video or photos pop up, just, look at them for 30 seconds. And that's it. You've evoked a positive emotion here. And within that 30 seconds, you will feel awe or appreciation for the cuteness of those animals, or love, or what. So there's a variety of things you might experience, but that's all it takes to have a power up be activated. Another example is to chug a glass of water or drink a glass of water. This may be the easiest power up ever. I intentionally do this one every morning. It's one of the first things I do when I wake up, right? So I'm waking up, I'm dehydrated from the night. And so I'll get a cold glass of water, and I'll be very intentional about it, because power ups, they're evoking positive emotions. So the more we're paying attention to them, so I could just mindlessly chug a glass of water and be on with my day, but I pay attention. And what's happening is, the water is not only hydrating, which is giving me energy, but also as I'm noticing the cold water and feeling it on my lip and tongue and throat, I'm feeling it's giving me a sense of overall physical energy as well. So it's kind of a way to power up, both emotionally as well as physical energy as well. The next rule is to complete quests. If this was a traditional goal setting system, the quest would be the to-do list. So these are small daily steps that move you towards your epic win. Quest, the key here is small steps. The quest can be things you do every day, or they can be things that you do occasionally or once. So the idea is to do daily steps, but it doesn't have to be the same step every day. We're big believers in the science of tiny habits that says small, consistent steps over time is where big outcomes come, versus trying to do too much. And often when we're excited about starting a new program or a new goal, we kind of get excited and try to do too much. And then within a few days or a few weeks, life gets in the way, we have setbacks, and all of a sudden we're struggling to keep up. And it has an opposite effect in terms of our motivation and ability to be successful. So on your note sheet, think about what would be a small step towards the epic win that you preliminarily selected, and just write it down. And that can be your first quest. And then over time, when you come back and revisit your list, you can add more quests as well. The next rule is battling the bad guys. Bad guys this is my favorite rule. It's my favorite technique. I think it's really, really powerful. It's a way of reframing the obstacles that you face in your life into bad guys that you can battle. So you find the obstacles, you rename them, reframe them as bad guys, and then come up with strategies to confront them. Bad guys can be internal or external. So internal bad guys might be belief systems that you have about yourself or others. They might be about habits that you have. External bad guys might be relationships with other people, or other kind of external things that are blocking your progress. If you're trying to get work done and your phone's sitting next to you at your laptop, and the notifications are going off saying you have new messages and it's distracting you, that could be an external bad guy. Once you identify the bad guy, then you can come up with strategies to try to confront it. Some bad guys can be vanquished. So either you battle it once and it goes away, or you battle it, each day for a week or two and it goes away. There are other bad guys, especially the internal ones, that aren't going to go away, especially if you've experienced some, trauma, childhood trauma, or other kinds of situations that have created, some psychological barriers. Some of those aren't going to go away, but by using this framework, you can confront them and have them have much less of an impact on your everyday life. So I'm going to ask you to, on your list, to think about an obstacle to that epic win you identified. Rename it as a bad guy. If you give it kind of a frivolous name, it helps. It takes it down a notch. And then come up with a potential strategy to confront or battle that strategy, and write those down. As you're doing that, let me share an example of an internal bad guy. This is called the self-critic. I use this because we probably all have or have had this bad guy to some extent impact our lives. So this is that little voice in your head that says you're not good enough. Maybe it says you're not valuable, you're not lovable, they don't like you, you have imposter syndrome, or something similar. So if this resonates with you, if it's the self-critic is a bad guy you battle, you can write that down and use this. If it's a relevant bad guy for you, you can also come up with different battle strategies. So the example on this screen is call out the bad guy's lie. Think about all the times you've succeeded in your goals. Another strategy might be call a friend and have them affirm and remind you that you are good enough. Another strategy might be, do some things to slow your thinking down a little bit. So maybe it's a breathing exercise or meditation, and a little bit of self-care to kind of quiet that voice in your head as well. So there are a number of things that you can do. The power of this kind of reframing exercise is that when the self-critic, if that's a bad guy example that's relevant for you and you identify it, it becomes external to you. So no longer are you kind of battling an inner voice inside your head, which kind of feels like you're battling yourself. Now you're battling the self-critic. The self-critic is not you, it's something external to you. And so you can be much more objective, and your brain kind of sees it not as kind of an internal flaw, but it's something that you can work on along with your brain together. All right, the next rule, recruiting your allies. This is about taking a minute to check in with a trusted friend or colleague. So your allies are trusted people in your life, your people that you invite to join you and to be your support. You can invite one person or multiple people. You can have the same ally all the time. You can switch it up every day, whatever works for you. The key is that these are trusted folks in your life that you can share and be open with. Each day that the objective is to spend a minute to check in. A minute is not enough time by design to solve problems. It's really just a minute to feel seen and heard. We recommend about once a week to do a longer check-in. Maybe it's 10 or 15 minutes. And that's a time where your ally and you can use the SuperBetter mindset framework as a coaching or a mentoring framework to have a facilitated conversation, but to have them help you to move forward. So maybe you're struggling with a bad guy and they can help you brainstorm battle strategies to help overcome that bad guy. Maybe they can share a favorite power-up that they learned this week as well. So the framework can be an effective coaching or mentoring framework between you and your ally as well. So for today's exercise, think about someone that you might want to invite to be an ally and just write down their name. When you go back and revisit this later, if you still think they might be the right ally or an ally, you can invite them to play SuperBetter or to be your ally in the SuperBetter experience. For the daily quick 1-minute check-ins, you can talk about anything. If inside our SuperBetter app for the students, we offer a quick simple topic just to give them ideas of what they might check in. So some of those examples might be, name 3 things you're grateful for, or which are better, cats or dogs, and why. And then the final of the 7th rule is to adopt a secret identity. This is a heroic nickname that inspires you. So I might be Keith the Dragon Slayer. And the power of this, there are kind of 3 reasons. This was originally added as a rule because there's research that shows that when we see our worlds and our challenges and opportunities in our real life through the lens of an avatar, it can help us with something called self-distancing. Self-distancing helps us distance ourselves from the situation we're in, which allows us to be more objective about it and be more responsive versus reactive. So that's kind of the core of the research. But also, Keith the Dragon Slayer to me is a much more motivating name, and as I'm using SuperBetter than if I'm Keith the CEO. And if you're doing SuperBetter with a friend or with friends, it's also a really fun way to a way to kind of create some social connection and social cohesion by calling each other by your nicknames, which is a fun way to do that as well. So if you have an initial idea for a heroic nickname you might adopt, go ahead and write that down. You can change your secret identity as often as you like, so you're not married to it. You can have it the same one all the time. You can switch it up every week or whenever the mood might hit you as well. So those are the 7 rules. You might ask next, like, how do I bring this into everyday life? And so the goal each day is to win the day, and you'll want to do that on a regular basis. Our recommendation is 5 days a week. It's not required to do it every day, 7 days. But if you want to, of course, you can. But win the day means activating 3 power-ups, battling 1 bad guy, completing 1 quest, and then doing the quick ally check-in. Most days, this might take you about 10 minutes to complete this level of activity. The research studies that I mentioned earlier all confirm that roughly 10 minutes a day for on a regular basis. It doesn't have to be every day of the week, but those lead to the positive outcomes around building strengths and improving mental health as well. Of course, if you want to do more than win the day, if you want to keep going and do more activities, you're very, of course, welcome to do that as well.
5 minutes left.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So I'm going to wrap up with actually the perfect timing then. So the as you kind of go back later this week, and if you choose to kind of revisit your notes and set this framework up for yourself, you can revisit all the ideas that you shared, the ideas that you can build on those ideas, so you can revisit that epic win. Is it the epic win you want to pursue? You can add more quests. You should have probably to start with at least 2 or 3 bad guys, and you can add more over time. But you can add more bad guys and battle strategies, and then keep collecting power-ups. And then each day, or at least on a regular basis, adopt the mindset, win the day, use the gameful language in your conversation. And then, sooner than later, you're going to achieve your first epic win. You'll have a chance that, you can celebrate with your allies, and then you rinse and repeat, set the framework up for your next epic win, and continue to develop either your organization or your personal goals as well. So that's the framework. I'm very pleased and happy that Kyle and team invited me, and I see us. We're all potential allies in this world, and so I value what TRIIBE is doing, and value the time that you spent to be with us today.
Well, thank you so much, Keith. I really appreciate it. If there's anybody with questions, feel free to ask, and we will answer them now. Otherwise, we will also jump and make sure that Chirag has some time to give questions as well. Chirag, are you with us? No, I think he's still having. Oh.
Can you see me? There we go.
Yeah.
We're back. There we go. Hi, everyone. Sorry. Keith, I don't want to take time away. Please, if anyone has any questions, but good to be back. And Keith, I was glad I got to catch the second half of your presentation here. Really excited to chat offline as well.
I'm very excited, Keith, the fact that you've created something so it's like a complex framework in a simple form is really difficult. And to back it up with science that demonstrates not only does creating an alternate persona, but also creating actionable steps help you really enable yourself to do better, to do super better. So yeah, let's make sure that we answer. I know, Chirag, we don't have that much time left, but there were a few questions that were asked, everything from how to continue a brand, what will AI affect branding, and we'll keep going from there.
Happy to chat. Pausing there for a moment. Anything, Keith, on your side? I don't want to cut your time off there.
All good here. Yeah, jump in.
I appreciate that, brother. Thank you so much. Kyle, do you mind sharing the screen again?
Yep.
Amazing, y'all. Okay, so I'm going to try to wrap this up in a little less than 5 minutes here, including sort of giving you guys some time for questions here. But to sort of go off, we were going off of Corona, the idea of echoes. Echoes are simply the words or the terms or the emotions, the feelings we want people to associate with us. And how can we essentially remind them of those words over and over again to the point that when someone asks them about who we are, they're simply echoing them back. A little bit of what Keith was also saying is sort of putting words to what your superhero name might be. That's a great example. When I often say that I am the brand historian, as I repeat that over and over again, that is one of my sort of superhero personas there. So Keith, I absolutely loved what you were talking through. But going from there, we have MasterCard. So sometimes your echoes can be just words that you want people to use. Sometimes it can be a feeling like Taco Bell. Sometimes it can be a product like coffee, a sort of term like adventurer. It can be just something absurd like the beach and them holding their own island that you can go and rent. Or sometimes it can be with MasterCard. If any of you have this credit card, I want you to take the card out. And at one point, I want you to bite into the card because MasterCard has its own taste. See, when they tried to understand what would our brand look like in the future here, they decided to start asking questions like, what would our brand taste like, smell like, or sort of sound like? In order to solve for that, they worked with a scent sommelier to come out with Priceless Perfume, which is running off of their existing Priceless campaign, and we can talk about that in a future session. They worked with a chef to come out with macaroons that are the official taste of MasterCard, and they worked with this group of in-house artists in order to come out with their own album as the official soundtrack for MasterCard. The entire idea is repetition, repetition, repetition across all your senses so that you continue to remember us in some way. Another example of what your echoes might look like is sometimes it's not just simple words, but it's also just the tone and the language that you use. A good example for this is Oatly, which is the oat milk company. But what you'll find is even when they're doing job listings, they're never taking a break from what their corporate language or their tone is. They want to be known as as a team that is full of really fun, exciting people who hate the fact that they're working in corporate culture. And so that's often shown even in the job listing itself. And then finally, we come down to Fred. Ladies and gentlemen, if Fred has one fan, it is me. If Fred has no fans, I have died. Fred has no idea that I exist. He has no idea that I'm such a huge fan of his. But the reason I'm such a huge fan of Fred is because when you go on Fred's LinkedIn page, the word systems reliability. See, Fred is a systems reliability engineer. Is he a good one? I have no idea. But depending on where you are in the world and what your network looks like, if you search systems reliability engineer, chances are Fred's name is going to be in the top 10 results for you. The reason is because on his LinkedIn page, he has the word reliability or some form of it at least 177 different times. And that's just the word reliability. See, even in one sentence, and I absolutely love this, right? He goes, there's one right here is apology. Oh, here he goes. Let's work together to improve reliability of your products and assets. Not sure which reliability tools provide the most value? Let's create a meaningful reliability plan. The word reliability in 2 sentences has been used 3 times. Ladies and gentlemen, that becomes his echo over time. And sometimes you can also use it in order to exclude individuals. If you look at Gymshark, Nike clothing, for the most part, there's the rise of this thing called athleisure wear, where people are wearing Nike clothing at home because it feels so comfortable. Gymshark wanted to be very clear that, hey, we are only for people who are actually going to the gym and not just for people who want to wear it around the house. They started to paste the slogan, "We do gym," across everything that they were doing. We do gym. We do gym. If you do gym, wear Gymshark. If not, wear something else. Ladies and gentlemen, the sort of lesson or the parting message here right now is that this is just step 1 of an overall framework. But what I said to you a little bit earlier applies here. If your entire life, if your brand is going to be reduced into simply a few words, I want you to decide what those words are going to be. And my advice on how to choose those words is 1, keep it incredibly simple. Red, Slow, 57, We Do Gym, Live Moss. All of these are incredibly simple words because sales don't happen in store. They don't happen at the dealership. They happen in living rooms. I was talking to a car company recently and I was trying to show them that when someone has, for example, a Mercedes car that they have, when a friend of theirs looks at the Mercedes and goes, "Hey, you have that car. What do you think of that brand?" The person's not sitting there going 650 horsepower, blah, blah, blah. They're not talking about any of the main sort of selling or marketing points. Instead, they'll say things like, "Oh, it's really cool. In fact, it has seat warmers," right? Or, "Hey, it's really cool. I really like the leather." Or, "Hey, it's like really smooth drive." These are simple, basic words in the English language. And your job is to choose words that would naturally pop up in people's conversation because that is where we're trying to win. You may not be a business. And even if you are, the conversation I want you to win is when your parent is trying to explain to their friends what you do for work. That is how simple your language should be. But this language also does not have to be the language you use for the rest of your life. Simply pick a few words and try them out. The key is to make it consistent across everything. Those words should be on your LinkedIn page. They should be on the home page. They should be on the product page. They should be across everything you do. You should be saying those words out loud whenever you're introducing yourself to someone. For example, when I introduce myself, I do say, "Hey, I'm Chirag. 9 to 5, I work at Google. 5 to 9, I'm a brand historian, brand historian, brand historian," over and over again across all my social medias. But that brings us to our third part, keep it audited. So one of the things that I often tell people to do is if you're going to book time with me is I'll send me everything you have, your website, your LinkedIn. I should be able to pull everything from there, create a word cloud, which would show me which words are used the most because they would be the biggest in the word cloud. I should be able to tell you what your echoes are without ever having met you. If they don't match what the words that you want to use, well, you have a big brand identity crisis. Keep it simple, keep it consistent, and you're allowed to change them over time. I promise you, your number one cheerleader is going to be you. And the beauty of that is that you will always control the bullhorn. That is the first part of our brand clarity framework. For the sake of time, I'm going to stop here, but to just give you a little bit of an idea is once you have your words, how do you share those words with people? Well, there are 8 types of stories that you have to learn how to tell. And one of my favorite to tell is your mythos stories, where the myths, the legends around your brand that make people feel like they're connecting to something larger than simply a product. And a good example of this is the Duolingo birds, or if you may be a big fan of the Duolingo bird on social media, but never actually use the app. Or another good example is any political slogan. Regardless of which side of the political spectrum you're on, if I say a certain slogan, immediately everyone around you does the exact same thing. Is this person part of my tribe or the other tribe? Or on a sort of fun note, on Lufthansa's first class lounge in Munich airport, ladies and gentlemen, one of the most stolen items is not paintings or magazines or food, it's rubber duckies. They used to put little rubber duckies in the showers because they felt a little empty. People kept stealing them as souvenirs. And so we have all these rich people around the world that in their homes have Byzantine Empire vases, and next to that, little rubber duckies. Lufthansa decided to lean into this to come out with limited edition rubber duckies for different things like holidays or your anniversaries or how long you've been with the company. And it's become something that Lufthansa first class passengers seem to love to connect. It gives them something stronger to hold on to than simply a plain seat. Brand clarity framework is very clear. Oh, sorry.
We may have to cut you off here.
That's absolutely perfect. The last thing I was going to say is, ladies and gentlemen, your story will be written. Let it be by your pen. And with that, Kyle, tossing it back to you, brother.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Listen, thank you so much. Thank you all for coming and joining our inaugural workshop for TRIIBE Talk. If you're interested in signing up for the next event, you can scan the QR code below, as well as to connect with us on LinkedIn to keep informed. You've been a tremendous audience. Thank you for the questions and comments, and we look forward to seeing you all on the next one.